Hello, people. This is going to be the first podcast for the Dominus. I don't really know what we're calling it. We really don't. We usually have the main podcast, and this one's kind of the Pro League one. We'll think of a funner name after this, but for right now, I'm going to be your host for this one. My name's Shadow, and then I've also got our co-hosts, Gunshi and Clutch. Say hi, guys.
How you
Hello.
doing?
How you guys doing? I know we had a little bit of a scrim earlier, so you guys might be tired, but you chilling?
So
Yep.
far,
Okay. Well, let's get into our first topic here. EUL just ended 3 days ago at this point. Current placements as far as teams go, Wolves ended it out in first, Rogue ended it out in second, M&M third, and G2 fourth. Now, I know G2 got a lot of slack early on because they weren't doing so well, specifically Prano, fuck, why did I pronounce it like that? But Prano. But he's really turned it around since the beginning. And as far as the rest goes, I'm not really the craziest fan of EUL, but I was just like looking at some of this stuff, and Wolves went 7-2, Rogue went 4-1. I'm not counting overtimes right now, but M&M also went 4-2, and then G2 went 5-4. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on just who ended up top four and like the close teams, because I know for a lot of people Heroic was this big power team and a lot of people were fans of Heroic, and G2 also caught a lot of slack mid game and really turned it around. I know they won the last 4 games of the season and they were all within 7 rounds. I think it was. No, it wasn't 7 rounds. It was within regulation. Sorry, they didn't go to overtime once. And granted, throughout the whole season, pretty much they didn't go over the overtime. But what are your thoughts as far as the ending here? Oh, you will.
Um, all I can say is G2 came in clutch. Um, Heroic kind of choked at the end and played a 9, tragically. And that not really surprised by the top 4 teams other than G2 coming back from the dead.
Yeah. I mean, granted, they did tie up in the end, but that's kind of funny that you pointed that out because I just realized they literally played in the last play day for the last spot. If they would have pushed them to overtime, Heroic would have been in the top four and G2 would have been out, but G2 won pretty much 7-2. They cemented it right there, and even if it did go to round differential, I pointed this out last time, but the differential was 11-3. And the differential for that point was kind of insane when I looked at it because Wolves and Rogue, your number one and number two, they had a differential of 21 and 18 respectively. But M&M had a difference of two, and they were only 1 point up on G2. But G2 was plus 11 and Heroic was plus 3. So that was a very insane to see. Is that they, even though they did tie, differential came into play, and that was how they got in. Now, what are your thoughts, Gunshi? Because I know you're kind of across the board here in terms of performance and who you like and don't like in here.
so yeah, Wolves were, I think, if they came anything less than top two, they were going to be a surprise. So they ever since they brought, I guess it would be that X Vitality core, and then Mowgli coming in, they've been dominant. Rogue, little stuttery at first, but they really smoothed out. A lot of individual performance from Spoit and Cryan in particular. M&M, that team plays either 7-5 games or overtime games, which then explains the +2, as well as they're 55-53 on round count. That's very tight. And then G2, I think like you and Clutch said, they really brought it back. And in their last 4 play days, 7-3, 7-0, 7-3, 7-2. So really, that's where that round differential really comes in. And the one thing to note with G2 that I really liked was they really started to show chemistry. They did transition IGLs mid-stage from Prano to Citizen, and I think that might have had a part. but also they just got more comfortable, and they said part of that was that Ali Mao is finally getting used to playing in European League as opposed to Brazilian play.
Yeah, because
So
we
yeah,
because we do know those play styles are very different in terms of EUL versus everyone else, and even like NA versus LATAM is kind of crazy. But yeah, no, you did bring up the 11-3, but also they were getting shit on early, and I didn't know that they switched IGLs mid stage, but that would contribute something to their performance. Now, do you think that possibly increases their chances of doing well in the major, or do you think they'll still go to the major and have issues possibly?
I think that the way that it's seeded right now, I want to just look at the major groups, that they are playing against a very tough group, but they're also playing in FaZe Clan and Sonics, two very structured opponents. I think G2 likes non-structured games.
Yeah,
The way it works for them is Doki has to kind of have his good day. He's plus 30 or something right now at the end of EUL. And then you have Doki, Citizen, Ali Mao, all these players who really have like a wild play style, a very in your face, a very, they like running Knock. Knock has been very big in G2's lineup. Alibi, Finka, Yana, that very in your face meta. So I think especially against Sonics and FaZe to a certain degree, but not as much, they will struggle dealing with the structure.
yeah,
But I do think that they can make a run. I mean, if they stay on the current trajectory, I wouldn't be surprised. They're
yes.
definitely not. I mean, if a few weeks ago you told me they were going to be at the major, I would have been like, "Was tourists?" I mean, like,
Yeah.
it,
I feel like if you would have told someone mid-season that they were going to be in the major, they would have been very surprised. But I would also like to touch on this because we've seen it kind of happen throughout last year, is these content creators kind of making the shift in the Pro League. We saw it last season with, well, not really last season, but last year with Bolo, and they made it all the way to SI and won it last year. And now this year we're seeing Sploit with Rogue come in, and I don't think they really did the best the first game, but ever since the first game, they have been pretty much just pushing it more and more, and they've pushed so far to get plus 18 and be the second seed in the UL. So I personally happy to see his performance, but what do you guys think as far as these content creators coming in and kind of joining comp? You think it's a good thing or a
Um,
bad thing?
I think it's good because it brings more people to watch Pro League.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing because we not a lot of people really watch this. It's one of the top comp games, but like as far as viewership numbers go, we don't really have that many people watching, which is very interesting.
yeah, to play off what Clutch said, I think either when you bring in Spoit, who has a massive following, to Rogue, Benja, he's not quite the Spoit size of content creator, but he is. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's at like the 100K mark, I want to say.
Yeah,
In terms of YouTube subscribers to Heroic, 25K. My fault. He's a lot smaller than I thought, but still, a 25K sub YouTuber in Benja coming into Siege, and then obviously, like you said, Bolo coming in with his 1.1. Okay, so it's 1.25 million subs. I mean, the exposure there is really great, and when you look at Bolo's YouTube channel, he's highlighting his pro play. There's vlogs about the pro play. There's highlights from the pro play. So that bridges that gap between the casual YouTube audience and the hardcore esports people like us who really
yeah.
follow it. So
Which
overall, no loss.
yeah, no, I'd agree definitely. It seems like it's pretty much a win-win. The teams are doing well, and we're getting more people watching the organizations, more people watching Pro League in general. And as far as viewership goes, it's very good. But as far as EUL goes, I know at least within the server, we have a couple of French boys that like watching BDS, like rooting for them. I've also seen a lot of people supporting Navi, and we already talked about Heroic, but what do you make of these teams, Navi and BDS, being placed sixth and seventh in EUL? Because I know for most of us, we knew Outsiders, Secret, and PWNZ were gonna kind of do poorly, but Navi and BDS was doing really well the last couple of years, and then recently they're just kind of suck and win pretty much. So what's your take on that?
I have to say is I think they just got stagnant, like TSM. Like they're doing good. They're kind of just riding off the waves of their big name fragger, like Shaiko. And eventually they're kind of content being in that middle ground area at land, getting out of group, maybe getting past a round or two, and then losing in 2 or 3 maps.
Yeah,
And they haven't really evolved beyond anything. They haven't really changed their play style.
it's mostly just Shaiko, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Gunshot? Because I know I don't know if you're the biggest supporter of them, specifically BDS, but they've got to do
Uh, I'm
something, right?
I'm not a big BDS fan personally. I think that they're a fairly mid team. Uh, because first off they're French.
Okay, okay, okay. I gotta make this clarification. We do not hate French people. Okay,
No, just the
continue.
country.
Whatever.
So I think the thing that BDS really struggles with is, like Clutch said, I think there's a stagnation factor. I mean, even G2, that Penta G2, that was, the dominant, that dynasty from the start of the game to around 2019,
Yeah,
2020. What happened eventually? People's attitudes change, people's work ethic changes, complacency comes into people's minds. Oh,
yeah,
we're already at the top, so I don't have to try as hard. And then, I mean, and again, people are also allowed to have individual slumps. Day has been very inconsistent this stage. The guy used to be clutching rock. You couldn't, if you saw Day was less alive on smoking a 1v5, he could win it. But lately that spark is not there. And so, I mean, I think that this team, I mean, they won today at Gamers 8, but I don't think that, we'll see. I think that will really show us where the team's going in terms of whether someone gets dropped. However, they kind of have a struggle in that they're a French team, so there's a much more limited pool of players available. So I am
yeah.
curious what their next move is.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you about like stagnation because as you said, they kind of used to have these players that pop off and TSM also used to have that where literally like SI, they had a guy that every other round would go for like 2 or 3 and just take out half of the team by himself. And then recently they've really just not had those people. They were a lot of people because of the recent 2 stages have really written off the SI win as kind of a fluke because it seems like every time they needed a play to be made, someone made that play. But come this stage, whether role switches came into factor or just poor performance, they have not been able to be that consistent team that we saw in the major where you'd have 1 or 2 people go off for these kills. And really, it starts to affect the team overall, as we saw with TSM being at the rock bottom of NA and BDS really dropping to almost outsider level as far as like win loss is concerned. But
I think
go
Sorry,
for it.
I just
No,
wanted
you're
to
good.
I wanted to say that Team BDS also, I think that as the time has gone on, the mechanical talent in the league has just gone up. I
Yeah.
think, before it was Shaiko, Joystick, Kanto, and that was pretty much it. Maybe Aces you could put up there when he was on Rogue slash Giants or whatever they were at the moment. They've had so many orgs represent them. But now I feel like every team has these young guys that are, I mean, I'm 18 and these guys are younger than me. And these guys come in, they turn 18, they come right into Pro League. They were in like T3, and these guys can all shoot. So all of a sudden, Shaiko having the ability to shoot, excuse me, it's not as big. It's not like he's not just this Terminator anymore. There's those kind of pop off players in every team.
Yeah.
So, and then I think, like you said, there's slumps and complacency. As for Navi, though, I think that you hear Navi and you think of someone who's won a Pro League championship, and that is not. And that's just this team is different.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's no one from that roster that won an SI. Not SI, sorry, a Pro League final.
Yeah.
It's 5 players. I mean, Blur and Nath have always been okay Pro League players in their career on Navi, but I mean, Thunder was relegated. That's his last. That's his last thing before Navi. Kayak was very mid on G2. He never really went anywhere. I mean, he got to an SI, but they'd always lose pretty early. So Kayak really is not a standout player. And then
Yeah,
Skitty's a T3 player, and he's been doing better than the rest of them.
that's
So
really unfortunate.
when your T3 player is doing better than your veterans, I understand why you're in. What are you in now? Seventh, something like that. It
Uh,
is what it is.
yeah, they're in seventh. That's actually a place better than they were last stage, apparently. They were in eighth last stage, but yeah, no, you also touched on this. We were talking about G2 when this happened, but the major is coming up. That's pretty much what's next in terms of like the actual winning teams. So I'm gonna go pretty much down the list here. We've got the groups now that this has been finalized. We know who's against who's making it out. So I'll start with you, Clutch. Who do you think's kind of like the hard group to be? The one that literally anyone could make it out of? Like usually you have those groups where you can pretty much say, hey, this one team and this team's probably gonna make it out unless something catastrophic happens. Do you see any of those groups here in front of you?
For me, I say the quote unquote easiest group is probably Group C, and the hardest group is Group D.
Okay, so you said Group D is the hardest. Would you like to expand upon that?
Um, as far as Group D, you have Astralis, Elevate, N&M, and Furia. Astralis is number one NA team. You got N&M number three EUL team, and in my opinion, I think they're really the second best team in EUL. You got Elevate, which is the number one team in APAC, and Furia, which is a uh, second team in LATAM. So a lot of top tier teams in Group D.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I feel like Elevate being held out from the last major might bring a little fire to the table. Astralis, I feel like is everyone has them planted in as pretty much the one seed for this group, but we've got to come to realize I think some people have, some people haven't. The Astralis we saw last stage was not the Astralis we saw this one. I joke about it a lot. It's uh iconic cutting his hair really just cut his skill level too, but I something's wrong with iconic because the iconic we saw last season where as Gunshy worded it whenever we've been talking, is you live in Iconic's world. I've heard the spectator say as well. It's Iconic's world. It it hasn't been happening recently. The guy's really been on a cold streak, and I feel like their success really comes down to if he performs because the rest of the team has been doing pretty decent. We've got Forrest, which I love watching the guy on knock. He plays Iona. He's really good at entry fragging and the rest of their team is also extremely decent. And then you're going against Furia, which I hold in high regards as far as LATAM teams go. And Eminem has been really good as of recently. Astros cannot afford to just mess around here because if they do, they might not make it out of the stage because I'm looking at all these NA teams and I believe they probably have the hardest path to get out of here, other than maybe like Xset. But that's conversation for later. Gunshot, what are your thoughts as far as Group D go? Because I feel like he is kind of right in that it's a very hard group to come out of.
I think it's I don't know if I'd say it's the hardest group to come out of. I do think it's the closest group though.
Yeah,
And so I kind of agree with Clutch. It's definitely the one where I think all four teams, I don't think there's a losing team in this group basically.
yeah,
Astralis, my only concern is like you said, they are a very momentum based team. If Iconic's having a good day and Forest is like walking into state on knock and the other team is not aware of it and they're just popping off, that team is stupid. But then they could have off days. Elevate from their international performances, very solid team. I can't really go forward that much. I don't watch them enough. Furia reminds me of Astralis. They're very, Fantasy's on that Finka roll, and if Fantasy's popping off, he's dropping a 20 bomb, and if Fantasy's predicted, the dude can't shoot the broadside of a barn. He'll be 0 and 7. And so they've never really actually, funny enough, they've never actually gotten that far in a LAN. You always think of them as this dominant force. They have never gotten very far out of groups actually, which is surprising. So, and then Eminem I think is a very consistent team. So I think that they have very good odds of getting out. I like their play style. It's very reserved with calculated aggression from Tyrant.
Yeah, it's very interesting that group specifically because we didn't even see how Elevate played on land last season because they were held out of it. But I also you brought something up a while ago with Astralis doing bad against like teams that are put together. Because like for Astralis to be good, you have to get the other team out of their skin. Iconic does his best when he gets inside your head, whether it's with the trash talking or with something else. And I feel like if they keep their nose to the ground, whatever team they're going against, Astralis isn't going to win because all that energy is just going to be wasted trying to get them fired up, and it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah, it's that Astralis again. It's. I feel like their performance is really going to be on if Iconic can get his stuff together. But uh, okay, you seemed like you didn't agree with him as far as the most difficult group to get out of was Group D. What do you think the most difficult group for you is?
So yes, I said that I believe Group D was the most even group in terms of everyone's very good and could get out or could get stuck. But for me, the hardest group that I think to bust out of, even though after watching Gamers Day today, maybe this is no longer a good call, was Group A.
Group A?
Uh, I mean, held them on in very high respect. I thought, oh wow, they'll make it far. Well, they got first rounded by a bunch of non-top four teams in a tournament today that was worth more than this major. So I don't know what
Yeah.
they were doing, but I think that if they are in good form, they're a very hard team to beat. NIP, I don't really know what to think of NIP anymore. They
I
don't
think
seem,
they've been solidified as the fourth place on this one because like I feel like all the
yeah.
other teams have a lot more skill in comparison.
But Rogue and Exet on the other hand, I think Rogue and Exet really, yeah, I think this is the toughest group. Rogue and
Yeah.
Exet are really those young gunners clashing.
Yeah.
And
I
Yeah.
so I think this is a rough group by far.
Yeah. As far like as NA teams go, I personally think that if there's a team that not come out of these groups, it's probably going to be Exit because in NA we kind of know them as like I guess it's going to be bad wording, but the throw team like Exit the games that you expect them to win, they don't. And then the games you expect them to lose, they somehow find a way to win. And that's kind of how they made it here. Like I when I think of Exit, I think personally that I could easily see Rogue and Damwon both beating them and getting out of this, just because they've really kind of not shown up when people expect them to win and expect them to do well.
Yeah, the other thing with Exit that's interesting, and I don't know if you and Clutch have noticed this, but Spirits, who is an IGL fragger, he plays Finka for the most part on IGL role, has major consistency issues. There's some days where the guy is electric, and there's other days where he's not even doing poorly. He can't get a kill.
Yeah,
And that definitely affects the momentum of the team, especially when your shot caller is off and your main fragger is also off as a result. It's a risky gamble in terms of performance.
yeah.
So we'll see.
So I'm gonna get Clutch's prediction here, and then I'll wrap back around to you. I'm assuming, like this is my prediction for this. I believe Rogue will come in first out of this, and then Exet will come in second. Just for the record, just because Rogue seems like such a tall team right now, even if they are in EUL, I think they will still make it out of this just for the fact that all these teams are kind of like quote unquote mid, and Damn One really didn't do well recently. So that's just my thoughts. Clutch, who do you think's coming out of this?
I think even despite Damwon Kia being killed in action today, I think they're still making it out. And I have Exit as well, making it out as well. I think, well, Ninja's Pajamas is going to be just feeding just fodder to Exit Rogue and Dom Juan.
Yeah,
And I think Rogue will end up choking at the end when it matters.
yeah. That is a very interesting take. Gunshy, what do you think? Are you kind of along the same path as him, or Or are you more so with me and the Rogue and X-Set coming out of it?
I think that I kind of am actually in the middle of you two. I think that Rogue has a potential to be very dominant, but Spoit's first time on land. Kanto hasn't been on land in over a year. I think there's a lot of stake still. So I think they're either going to need to do very good or they could just get very nerved up and upset if something goes wrong.
So which teams do you think are interchangeable? Do you think any of these teams are kind of like a sewn in as a pretty much guaranteed making it out?
I think it's Rogue and Xset. After today, I really, with them on, I can't trust them. So
Okay.
I'm going to go Rogue Xset, yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's gonna be a more interesting group because the more and more I look at it, the more and more I realize there's a lot of X factors in that group specifically. But I know you mentioned this, Clutch. Easiest group being Group C. I kind of in that mindset because I think I haven't really heard much of these Gladiators. They're an APAC team, and I don't think they're gonna make it out, honestly. Oxygen, we come to know them as the powerhouse of NA or one of them, although they haven't really performed well in land. They've made it like maybe second round and then they've kind of just dropped off. But Wolves being the first in NAL, I think, or not NAL, EUL, sorry. I think they'll also get out, but W7M, I could easily see taking out Wolves or Oxygen, especially Oxygen, because as much skill as Oxygen have, you're going to notice this is a common theme with me. Xset and Oxygen kind of have consistency issues where they can either pop off and be really running together as a team, or they can be just completely throwing everything away. And next thing you know, with Oxygen specifically, they'll be down like 0-4, 0-5, and they are not a good team when working from behind. So I could easily see W7 and Wolves coming out of it, but I do think if if they're actually together, I feel like Oxygen and Wolves could easily pull out of this as far as Group C goes. But Clutch, I want you to expand your thoughts though, as far as you thinking Group C is probably the easiest.
I agree with your statement of Oxygen and Wolves coming out, but I think W7M, even despite them having going 7-2 and having a 30+ round differential in Lat AM, I don't think they're even gonna come close to sniffing getting out of Group C. And then there's Gladiators. They are a APAC South team. Um, I've never watched them in my life, and well, just looking at you know the play days. I mean, iffy team. So yeah, just going with Oxygen and Wolves, two teams I know, W7M, team I have watched, and a team I don't think will just come out, even despite their round differential, because they got some real weird losses
Yeah.
just in Lat AM. Like what they lost to Double O Nation. Oh,
I
uh,
don't know some of these LATAM teams, so I'm laughing at the
all I know
names.
is they're ninth place with 11 points.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of losing the Mirage. Like
Yeah,
that's pretty yikes, honestly. But I think I do agree with you though on the Wolves Oxygen. But I didn't know that round differential. W7M, now that you brought up that round differential, I'm not gonna sleep on them too much. They could you bringing that up actually reminded me that they might be able to pull off against Wolves, but I still think Oxygen and Wolves will probably make it out of there. Gunshy, resident, I don't know, EUL fan. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Wolves are pretty, yeah, as an EUL enjoyer myself, Wolves are pretty much, in my opinion, a guaranteed qual.
Yeah.
And I want to say OXG is pretty much a guaranteed qual.
Don't
Gaming
say it. Don't
Gladiators,
you dare say it, you asshole. You just jinxed them.
I mean, fine, I don't really care.
Jeez.
Gaming Gladiators, they squeaked the qualification. They were fourth place if I remember correctly.
Ah,
So they're a little more on the line. W7M is an interesting story in that they haven't played a major LAN against like the big dogs, but
Yeah.
LATAM does offer a lot of LAN experience compared to other regions. I'd
Yeah.
say after NA they play the most LAN. They do actually play a fair amount offline, so I think that they are used to LAN already and they have played LAN build before. So they could come in and upset.
Actually, we were clowning on them, but the Gladiators actually came second in APAC.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that real quick because the second you brought that up, I was like, I
Damn.
don't know if that's right. No, they came second, which,
They make me look bad, Dan. Thanks.
well, I just wanted to make sure we
In
got our facts right for any APAC enjoyers out here.
all three of
But
them.
hey,
Oh, in
man.
points total, they're technically fourth if you combine North and South.
Yeah,
Thank you,
but
Clutch.
I still I still think that Oxygen and Wolves are probably going to be the ones to pull it out. But
Definitely. I
yeah,
think
Yeah.
W7M though could be a very disruptive force in the middle, so to
yeah,
speak.
definitely, definitely. I definitely think that they might make the actual final games here a little bit closer. But it's Oxygen. It's gonna come down to preparation and seeing if they can get out early. Because if they can't, they're gonna take it. Dude, honestly, they're just gonna take L's. It's gonna be terrible.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. But we're gonna move on to the last group we have. We kind of bounced around. We went from D to A to C, but we're gonna end it up here with B because you mentioned B earlier when we were talking about G2 again. But G2, you said doesn't do really greatly against organized teams, and I've come to realize that about them. They do best when their IGL has to improvise and when they use these insane strats. We were looking at a couple of them yesterday. Um, Personally, I think Sonics and G2 kind of are probably going to be a takeout. I could see FaZe doing it, but FaZe hasn't really been that team as of late. They've really haven't really made a mark. And as I say that, I'm kind of looking like I'm looking pretty bad because I'm looking at this and actually no, they finished third in LATAM. So I was about to say they finished like first or second, but no, they finished third. So I could easily see G2 if they're together coming out, but as I said, it's going to be whether or not they can actually keep that roster together and working well as they did throughout the last 4 games of the season in stage 2. Because as I said, they haven't lost any of the last 4 games they played, and they didn't even go to overtime. So like it's going to be very interesting putting them in here and seeing how they do on the pretty much global stage here in this major. But Gensha, I know you are a avid Sonics fan, pretty much. So this is going to be a very pivotal moment for you because Super's hopping off after this stage. But what are your
That's
thoughts as far
true.
as this group comes out?
Well, as a super Seth charm enjoyer and a Sonics enthusiast,
Not biased at
uh,
all.
I mean, honestly not. We're all very if you get Seth's charm, you're based, but that's a different story.
Yeah,
I think that Sonics and FaZe Clan come out of this group, with G2 being kind of that upset factor that
yeah,
could come out, but I don't really have faith in. Sandbox is pretty much a fourth place. They come to a lot of lands, they lose a lot of lands.
yeah,
Get grouped. FaZe play a very unconventional style. Their holds are very wonky. They like weird extensions. But if FaZe is clicking and like Cyber is being enabled, I think they do very well. They have one of the best clutchers on their team in Souls, and I think overall they're very well seated to win, at least get out of groups. G2 though also have a good clutcher. They don't really. I mean, they have Ali Mao, and he has been very good at clutching in the past. That
yeah,
was kind of in his T1 days though in LATAM. So I don't know. His G2 performance has not been as good.
yeah,
Sandbox, I already trash talked them, and then Sonics. I think that Sonics they have one of the best clutchers in NA in Kansan.
yeah,
His clutch against Damwon was actually at SI was insane. It was a 4v1 for map. And then I think they have one of the best. I think of this group, Sonics have the best IGL. And I think they might have some of the most talented guns. But they've gotten better at international play. But at first they struggled with adaptation. So I'm interested to see how they do. But I think that overall it will be Sonics and FaZe Clan getting out. Who will
Yeah,
be first and who will be second? That I think is pretty much a toss up.
yeah, I kind of agree with that. I do have a bone to pick with Sonics, and I made this very clear to you. I
Oh, you did.
kind I kind of hate Super because he monetizes literally everything on his Twitch channel. That's one of them. And the second reason I hate him is because Sonics in their success really rely on him. Like recently, the stage, this guy has been getting 2.0 KDs, 1.0 Ks, 1.5 KDs, but his team's success kind of rides off of that. They weren't really doing the best last season, even though I'm pretty sure they still made it out and made it into the major. Did
Last
they?
season they did not.
They didn't.
They missed last major. They were in
Yeah.
ninth place or eighth place.
Well, that
TSM was in ninth and they were in eighth. That's how it happened.
I guess that kind of reinforces it, but like they really rely on him doing well. Like when he does well, the whole team does well, and he is the best IGL here. But I feel like if they want to go far in this, he has to be doing well. He cannot be going 2-11, 2-12, like dropping literally next to nothing and just being an IGL. He has to actually be getting kills. He has to be doing good work and be killing everybody. As far as FaZe Clan G2, I do think that it will come down the map. Like if it's a map where there's a lot of improv, improv that's needed. Ugh, words. I feel like they could easily take it, G2. But if it's a very structured map, like let's say Cafe, it's going to be very hard for G2 to pull out a win.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that comes down a lot to FaZe Clan also doesn't do exactly the conventional hold.
yeah,
Their play is very unique, and I think that really will mess with G2. I think Sonics, actually, I will say Sonics historically have done better against FaZe than any other team.
yeah,
Sonics have beat FaZe as far back as like 2019, with like a much worse roster with Slubin, Gomfy, Goddess, and Neptunes and Super.
yeah.
FaZe Clan Super has FaZe Clan's number, so I think if the team's having a good day, I think that FaZe can lose to Sonics. I think FaZe can beat G2.
So what do you have to say to me and kind of Sonic's and his Super's reliability? Because I know Super has been doing really well. You've made that very clear to me that he's doing well. But do you agree with me that their success kind of rides on if he does well or not in terms of his
Yes,
KD?
I think that I mean the KD helps. I don't think he's someone that is like it's essential that he gets a lot of kills, but it is
Yeah.
if his other three of his other three big fraggers are having a poor day. Yeti especially can have inconsistencies. So I think Sonics do need everyone pumping, and they have problems with consistency. So we'll see
Yeah.
in terms of like where they land.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very interesting group. They're all interesting groups in of themselves. Usually, like last season, last stage, we had a couple of power groups where you're like, oh geez, there's three of the best teams in one group. I think it might have been Group C of last major off the top of my head, but there was definitely one group where you looked at it and you were like, oh, that's going to be a firefight. Across the board, it seems like there's going to be competition here, and I like it. But to end this out, this little segment, Clutch, what do you think as far as Group B goes? What are your predictions here?
I think Sonic is making it out as the first team.
Yeah.
Sandbox is making it out the fourth team. Uh, there's a chance that they might not even win a game or a map,
I got.
possibly.
Let's hope they're not the
Um,
Mirage where they mess up someone's chances of getting in.
and then second place comes between G2 and FaZe. Um, I think G2 is either they don't make it out, or if they do, they're getting first rounded, possibly too old. And FaZe, they're either not making it out or they're going to the semifinals, possibly even the finals, because FaZe is just built different.
Yeah. And I will say this. What? So first off, so what's your prediction? Sonics and which team?
Sonic and a coin flip between FaZe and G2, I can't decide
Okay.
because they're that close.
So I think G2 will make it out, and I'm standing by this, but I feel like they will get beat early. The only way I see them getting past first round is if they go against Rogue and Damwon, or let's say W7M if W7M manages to get out, or maybe like an Elevator and Eminem. Like if you don't go against these number one seed teams, I feel like they have a chance. But considering they're going to be a second seed, they're probably going to have to go against a first, and that's going to be a problem, I think. Um, yeah, because I don't think they can win against mattering on if it's a Group A team. That I don't know if they can even win against an Exet or a Rogue. I don't think they can win against anyone in Group A. But if they go against maybe a Group C or a Group D team where they're on and off, they could definitely pull a map or two, especially Oxygen. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't I don't see them getting very far at all. As whereas you guys have said, FaZe is they're one of those teams that can easily make it into the finals. It's kind of it's good. That's this group's kind of cut and dry. No matter who makes it out, Sonics is probably the only team that can really make it far. Maybe FaZe if they make it, but that's all mattering on if they make it out, which I don't think they will.
I also kind of find it funny how most of us have more confidence in FaZe and Fury than W7M despite the round differential in the rec.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how they do internationally. I don't think W7M does the best internationally in comparison to the FaZe. It's just who
Yeah.
they're also against in the groups. I think that comes down to that as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. What I did want to make a note of this. I don't see Empire. I'm going to bring that up just because Empire has really kind of disappeared after they made it to SI last season. Like, let me check off the top of my head,
Didn't
but
they disband?
did
Or no? Or is that a different team where I believe they like dropped their like the entire roster?
they dropped 4 people,
Yeah,
but
they dropped like 4 people
I
and
was
then
pretty
kept the
sure.
player and the coach over some drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gunshot, do you know off the top of your head?
I
I don't.
believe that there was drama over
Yeah.
the coach. They did not want the coach, their previous coach, being brought back. So they released Joystick, Always, Dan, and what was their fifth?
Yeah. They were in
Joystick,
EOL, right?
Always.
Yeah, they
Yes.
were EO and they
Yeah,
So
dropped like
Joystick,
they're
all
not
Always,
their
here
Dan, and
anymore.
players.
Shepherd.
They're not
Yes,
here
they
anymore.
were. So they made it
Yeah.
to SI Grand Finals
Second
against
place.
TSM, take it to Map 5,
And then
and
they
then
just
they're dropped.
Wait, was it map
yeah,
5 or map 4? I could.
Map 5 or Map 4, but still.
it was
Yeah,
They
yeah.
take
close.
it,
It
they
was
take it to a
close.
close series, and then they are dropped by Team Empire, and they lose everything. They do not have a spot. They're going to be playing Challenger League qualifiers.
Yeah,
That four stayed together, and they brought in former Empire player Karzeka as their fifth.
yeah, I
And they are currently in the process of hoping to qualify for Challenger League.
I was
Oh
saying this
my
when,
god.
yeah, I was saying this when it first happened, bro. Like, that is the worst fall apart that I've ever seen in this league. Like, as far as roster drops go, that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest one next to them taking apart G2. Like, Prime G2, just dropping it because they didn't want to finance the team. Like,
And that was Penta who sold it to G2.
yeah, that's
That is
that this is
tragic.
on that level. Empire made it to the SI, the highest point in this game as far as comp goes, and they lost. So guess what? Let's just take apart the whole team. No, no. You keep the team and you take apart the coach. Because really, those players are what got them there, not the coach. Maybe the strats helped, but like at the end of the day, Empire would made it there because of the players. And just take apart your team like that is I don't think personally the right move, but that happened a while ago.
It
Speaking
must
of,
have been some major disagreements for like the coach and the player to like just to disband like that. Like
yeah, this
yeah,
is this is neither here nor there though, because that happened 2 stages ago. Speaking of something
yeah.
that happened a lot more recently, and you guys have also been kind of eking it in here, Gamers 8. We got our first round down today. WYLDE. I'm gonna spell that out.
So wild.
Wild, yeah, wild. Beat both Liquid and Space Station
And
in Group A.
and to note that Liquid game, they beat Liquid on 2 successive maps,
Two,
7-1,
two,
7-1.
yeah. I Liquid. What's going on? I don't know what's happening because you guys also eked it in. Space Station beat Damwon, and Space Station has been doing terribly,
And to note,
terribly.
Space Station have a trial. They're technically trialing Dexter. He's not even actually their confirmed fifth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but fortunately for us, Team Liquid did beat Damwon, which again doesn't speak well for Damwon going into LAN in the major, and then Liquid and Space Station are set to go tomorrow, which will
Yes.
be interesting.
And the funny thing to note is you can't say, oh well, Damon probably didn't pull out the stops because this is not a serious tournament. You actually make more money playing in this tournament than you will in the major.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you get I'm pretty sure if I read it correctly, there's an 100K bonus for MVP. The MVP for the event is
No, there
100K,
is.
and the
I see
most
it right here.
yes, and the player with the most kills gets 25K.
25K. That is insane. And then the winner
Yeah.
gets 400K.
That's 80K a player plus your
Yeah,
coach.
that
It's
is.
crazy. This tournament's insane. And have you seen? And I don't know if you watched it today, Dan. The production on this thing is insane.
I have not watched it.
It
Wait!
embarrasses Ubisoft.
Oh, no, you're right. No, I just saw first place for the major is 200K. And the
Yes.
winnings for this in first place is 400. Second is 250. Literally, the second place team makes more than the first place team in the major.
So
What?
hypothetically, think this out. Wild, a T3 team in Germany who got to this major through the online qualifier, can make more money than G2 or Rogue,
Jeez.
who qualified in the Pro League,
That's crazy.
play
Yep.
at a major.
And I would like to also bring this up. We just talked about Group A and how Wild made it all the way, and Space Station and Liquid are fighting for that second group. Group
Yes, you
B.
know. Sorry.
No, you keep going, keep going.
I was gonna say Wild. I mean, we're saying they're a T3 team, but they do have Aces and Corey, two former players from Rogue.
Yep.
Aces was a mechanically gifted player. He's an amazing SMG11 player. Corey's always been a very consistent player, a constant figure in the Pro League scene. So they do have a lot of experience and heavy hitters on their
Yeah,
team.
yeah, definitely. Um, I've never heard of them until now. I don't think many people have, if any. But as far as the actual team, not the players. But
Well,
as
very under the radar.
yeah, as I was continuing on, TSM, TSM and MIBR played in Group B. TSM won 2-0, and same with Team BDS, a team that we were just talking about barely missed the major. They're going to be playing against each other. Falcons, I don't even know who Falcons is, but they're playing against MIBR. My assumption personally is, from me not knowing who these Falcon players are, MIBR will probably win. But as far as TSM versus BDS, the two declining teams that we were literally comparing earlier, I feel like TSM will probably pull out. I don't know about you guys.
So just to start, Falcons are from what I understand, a Saudi team. They're actually the first team from Saudi Arabia ever to compete
Ah,
in this.
interesting.
And
Hmm.
yeah, they played against BDS and got slapped. So yeah, what about as well as you expect?
Yeah.
As for
Yep.
TSM, I mean they have a sub two, so it's like a little hard to call. They have who is it, Snake? And this dude just looks like a carbon copy of Chala. I'm not even kidding. This dude looks like Walmart Chala. He has glasses and the hair and everything. It's really freaky.
Jeez.
He really just like is like yeah, budget Chala. So
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch their games really because it's a little early for me and I had
Yeah.
work. So
Yeah. Clutch, you think TSM will pull out over BDS? I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two teams who still think it's year five going at it
Hey
to
man,
win 400K.
as long at least BDS or sorry TSM has an SI in the last 2 years.
I mean all I'm
Yes.
gonna say is this is literally a mid off.
Hey man,
Quite literally.
I will disagree with that for the simple fact that the mid off is gonna make more money than the major. So who knows?
Look, it's
Oh
better
no, I
than
agree, but I
Hey,
think that it's funny that
how
these
does that
mid
happen?
garbage teams are literally playing for more money than like
I don't
the
understand.
best.
That doesn't make
Look,
sense.
as long as we don't have to watch Liquid versus SSG because that is even worse than where TSM BDS will be, I'm fine. And then you got MRBR, a team who is just depressing versus a unknown team from the Middle East. Um, I think Falcons will beat MRBR.
Yeah, I was about to say, knowing how these things go, Falcons will probably beat them, and then they'll have to play against BDS or TSM and lose. But I,
Yep.
if we see them come out, I would not be surprised just from seeing Wild. Also, looking at this, why the hell is Wild in their group already done when the other two haven't even made it to stage two as far as actual playing? Can someone tell me that? Because like I just realized
No
that I'm
idea.
like Wild's already qualified and the other two teams haven't even played.
I think it's just the like broadcast time and play time. I think that's all it is. Just how the
Yeah.
bracket went. It's really
Are these all
that's
land?
it.
I should probably ask that as well.
Yes,
They
this
are.
is a
I
LAN
assume so.
and it is beautiful. It's embarrassing what Ubisoft offers.
So where's it
But
hosted?
Saudi Arabia.
Oh, it's in. Okay,
It's in Saudi. Yeah, no,
interesting.
it's
With all the things that have been happening, I'm very surprised that that's a destination for this. But hey, I mean, making money.
yeah. I mean, it's not running directly by Ubisoft, so I think they don't care that much, and
Yeah, I
it's all
still.
about money at the end of the day.
That's so interesting though that they make more money doing this. That almost makes you want to kind of flop to get into this tournament. I'm not suggesting that anybody do that, but like that's kind of just unfortunate. Like, yeah, you get SI points from actually making like into that, but
Yeah, but screw
Uh,
SI. I make more money
but
here.
hey,
yeah.
almost $500,000.
Well, it's $500,000 for the major versus 1.2 mil. Like, I don't see how as a well, no, I do see it as an org how you do one or the other because you're saying the production quality of Gamers 8 is high, but overall, a lot more like a lot more comp viewers will probably watch the major than Gamers 8.
Yeah.
True.
Especially considering the time zone.
Yeah,
And the marketing has been hella scuffed. Very
yeah. I
mediocre.
was about to say I have literally not even heard it other than you mentioning it in the Discord and like just saying stuff in passing about it. I didn't even know it was a thing, but I'll probably watch the VODs after it's all done if I have time. But yeah, no, that's going to be a very interesting. That's very interesting concept in general. I guess SI points probably make up for that for any other teams and probably like jersey sales, but I don't know. So, any other topics you guys would like to bring up while we're here?
None
I
that I can
don't
think
have
of.
any other topics.
Okay, well, I know we're going to continue watching these tryouts for those of us that have actually been watching Gamers 8. And for those of us who don't, I believe the major begins on the 15th? 15th, yeah. There's going to be a
Something
lot
like
of games
that.
being played, yeah. Yeah, every game that I'm seeing here is the 15th for the initial. So that'll be a fun day to watch. Aren't
A
all the
lot
games
of
played on
battle
one day?
pass packs.
Oh,
I'm not
dude,
sure.
you reminded me of that, bro. I'm pissed. I'm already pissed. They're probably gonna do like one set for the whole week, like they've been doing recently, and not two. That's whatever. I hope they don't do them per week. They do them per day, like they usually do. But that's just me nitpicking at this point. Um, well, yeah. Anyways, we'll get out of here. Let you guys get back to your normal day. This has been Shadow. Been joined with Clutch and Gunchi here from Dominus, and we'll see you around.